I don't know. Are the boys enjoying their new school year?
Yeah, they are.
Are they?
They are.
What grade is
No, it's 9.
9?
No,
10?
No, I know.
And then
Yeah.
Joshua's in
Lots of products.
7? Kept it back since he's still in 6th grade. Sometimes it works the best, you know.
Yes.
And people who try to
Sorry,
get through just for the sake of
Yeah.
saying, you know,
Part of
something.
it, you know.
No.
It was kind of a struggle for us when
I'm
we were trying to do it.
sure.
It's like, you know, at first, you know, we kind of build them up to it. Because at first, his first grade.
Yeah.
When he was in first grade, the teacher told me he wasn't, you know, prepared.
Are we also on the side?
I'm like, I just walk into it.
Yeah, so Wake School State!
Yay! I like it. We're off balance. We're all on this side. That's good. Except for Sue is deciding to mix it up a little bit. So that's all right though. We like to stay this way. No. So anyway, so I just want to say thank you for coming. My name is Wayne Skalski. I'm a district leader. My job is basically to be introducing some people and just thank you for this evening coming. I know there's some places that you could be. I am just really fired up. It was funny. Kat was talking about the passion for business, or she was showing a website. People were talking about passion. And the exciting thing about that is that I view passion as something that you care about. It doesn't have to be something that's really, it can be really excitable or really not excitable, but if you care about it, you have a passion for it. I think you guys are going to hear from some people tonight that have different styles of delivering information, but they're all very passionate about it. I'm really excited to introduce them to you. So the first person you're going to hear from tonight is Adrian Zamora. He's a regional vice president, so he has an office south of us here, and so it's going to be really good to hear from him. Then you're going to hear from Sue Twiddell, who is the regional vice president of this office, and of course the fantastic Fred Sears. And something weird just happened, but it all worked out. So let me introduce you to the awesome Adrian Zamora.
Wade, how's everybody doing?
Great.
All right, awesome. And thank you very much for coming tonight. You know, it's some of you guys are here for the first time. If this is your first time, obviously the person that brought you here, you know, wants you to understand and support exactly what that person is doing. So again, thank you very much. Now you're gonna learn some good stuff, some really cool stuff. But I'm gonna go over something that is, you know, it's not really a America thing. It's something that is going on out there. And the first thing is that, will you guys? Let's do it now. I'm done. Okay.
No, that's.
Did we? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Okay, just bubble up a little bit.
Quick.
We might be having technical. No,
Okay.
will you guys hit blank for a second?
What's that?
We're trying new things here.
Hey, news good. Change is good.
Like, oh, you don't have your glasses.
I don't have my glasses. So
Oh, here I can do it.
I'll go like this. Yeah, I still can't see.
Well, we'll go with the younger person doing it.
Where you going? How many?
Adrian, would you like my reading glasses?
Which one is it? I'll see.
Well, the light here.
Okay. One on the
Oh
right,
my gosh.
second one on the right. Okay, so. Okay.
Where did it go?
Oh, that was good.
Is it on?
Yeah.
You see them,
No.
Okay. Well, would you guys, I mean, would you guys agree with
Talk
me
about yourself.
if I told you that there's a group of people called wealthy, right? And they pretty much have everything institutionalized. I mean, they have access to education. I mean, their kids are going to go to college. It's not a matter of if they're going to go, it's which college they're going to go to. It's done, right? It's already taken care of. And they have access to business ownership. I mean, you know, that's just, they own pretty much everything that we buy from. I mean, they have access to financial freedom because they have, you know, they're so wealthy, they can pretty much do whatever and take off whenever they want to. And they have access to financial support, financial advice. I mean, they have so much money that people just crave to be able to help them out. So pretty much they have everything institutionalized. You guys agree?
Yes.
But there's another group of people, and usually it's at the bottom. They're not so wealthy, right? And they pretty much have everything institutionalized, right? They have access to preschool, right? They want the kids to go to school, so they have access to that. Access to college, right? College grants. There's all sorts of institutions and government to be able to help those people, right? But obviously, we got to qualify to be able to get all the support. They have access to opportunities and stuff like that, right? So everything is institutionalized. But there's a bigger group of people in the middle, right? And because you're probably sitting there, it's like, wait a minute. When I first saw that, I'm like, I'm not wealthy, right? I don't have people knocking on my door to invest my money, right? I'm not pretty much at the bottom. We did whatever we could to be able to get us to where we were, and we're not there. We're not dependent, right? So where am I? And there's usually a big group of people in the middle, correct? And that's what we call mainstream families, American families, pretty much the rest of us. So whether you make, I don't know, $2,500 a month, or whether you make $25,000 a month, you're still in the middle, correct? And of course, we want our kids to go to preschool, right? But it's because we make a little bit more than the people at the bottom, we have to pay for it. It's up to us, right? Sometimes we struggle with that. We want our kids to go to college, right? But it's going to cost a lot of money. I know people that I went to college with that they're still paying for the loan. That wasn't 5 years ago. That was a little longer than that, right? So we want access to be able. We want to be able to own businesses. But if we're living paycheck to paycheck, how are we going to be able to afford, to buy a franchise for $750,000 or $1 million? It's not going to happen, right? And to be honest with you, because we don't make a lot of money, even though we want to be able to have the same access that wealthy people have, because we don't make a lot of money, nobody's coming to my house and saying, you know what, I want to help you invest $200 a month. We don't have enough money so we can have, the companies that help the wealthy to be able to help us, right? So the problem with that, is that we don't have access to all the stuff that the wealthy people have, right? So, but we are the biggest group in the middle. I mean, is this new to you? I mean, hasn't this stuff been going on for a long time?
Yes, it has.
It has, right? But see, the problem is that when we look at banks, when we look at lenders, right? When we look at insurance companies, and we look at corporate America, we feel there's a problem. Why? Because banks, do they want us to get wealthy? When we take our money there, do they teach us how to be able to create wealth with, the 1% investment or CD? It's not going to happen, right? Think about lenders. Do they want us to get out of debt? No, because they'll stop doing business with us, correct? How about insurance companies? They don't want us to be properly protected. It's not going to happen, right? What about corporate America, right? I remember my boss, sitting with me and putting a plan together to be able to get, to be able to become free. It's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. And the reason I say this is because that stuff is going on for years, and no one seemed to be bothered, including myself. I saw that, and I'm like, you know what? That kind of makes sense, but it doesn't really do anything to me. Why? Until something happens to one of us, until we get laid off, somebody passes away, or we find out that, for years we've been putting money in the bank, and we don't know what we're doing. They never teach us how to do it the right way. And whenever we find out that we have a bad loan and stuff like that, then we start getting a little bit mad, a little bit emotional, and we figure, you know what, we need to do something about this. But until that happens, we stand up. But still, no one seems to be bothered. But see, the thing is that it's not a matter if it's going to happen to one of us. It's when it's going to happen. And I promise you I promise you that someone that has been affected. If it's not you, somebody that's going to be affected, that has been affected by that. And the reality is that we follow the steps. I mean, since we're little, we've been taught that those are the things that we're supposed to trust. I mean, we do everything imaginable to be able to, put our money in the bank, go to lenders, and go to insurance companies, and follow the corporate America system for years, right? I mean, we do everything, and it hasn't worked. And the reality is, if we just ended the meeting right here, just just kind of bad because okay, you're talking about stuff that is real, but there's no solution, right? I mean, you talked about stuff that hasn't happened to me, it has happened to me, but you know what? What's the solution? What are we gonna do about it? Is there a path? Is there a different way? And of course there is. That's what you're here tonight. So, anyways, just wanted to share that with you because I know it's stuff that is real, and I think it's time that we look at those things and we go, you know what? There's something needs to be done about it. If it's not for us, it's gonna be for somebody else, but eventually it's gonna be for us. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring the awesome Sue Tudell. She knows how to work the clicker. She knows how to
Well, we're pretty much.
if she knows how to do that, she knows how to do the next part.
Here you go.
Welcome, Sue.
I think he's more disappeared. So you like our slides?
Yeah.
Oh, pretty nice, huh? Great PowerPoint. So we're looking at that. How many slides that you've saved disappear? It's like, huh? Yeah, crazy. But anyway, doesn't matter. So what Adrian was saying is that it doesn't become personal to us. I mean, it doesn't become critical until it's personal to us, right? Would you guys all agree with that? I mean, until our car breaks down, we don't care. I mean, we care about other people's cars, but not so much, right? What about when we're ready to retire? We don't have the money saved. It becomes a little bit more personal, right? Or when we want to put our kids through college and there's not the money there. That's, yeah, huge deal. And you know what? A bunch of us here said, no, okay, we can change this. We can make a difference. We can make an impact for American families, for Main Street families. We can make sure that something can be different. So what we did is we took a look at what the wealthy were doing. Because would you guys all agree the wealthy have to be doing something different than we're doing, right? In fact, over 80% of the wealthy are self-made, which means it's not generational, which means that money's not passed from father to son, right? That means that somebody made that money and got them to where they want to go. Which also means probably they're thinking something different than we're thinking, and they're, and they're doing something, we're going to try, and they're doing something different than we're doing. Okay, we're going to give it a shot, guys. Good. All right, you take it. Love it. So we looked at it and said, okay, so what exactly are the wealthy doing that we're not doing? Because if we start doing what they're doing, don't we have a better shot to have what they have? Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. So we looked at it, and we boiled it down, I'm not touching this one. We boiled it down to 4 principles. Thank you. That they do. The first one is they lock in advances for their family. Okay, what does that mean? That means they're going to make darn sure that they're not going backwards. They worked really hard to get to where they wanted to go, right? If something, God forbid, happens to the breadwinners, they want to make sure that their children aren't going to have to repeat everything, that it's not going to have to be done over and over again. And how do they do that? They do it with trusts. They have the money to be able to do that, right?
Right.
So that made sense. The second thing that they do is they establish habits to build on. They know that if they make money, they save money, and then whatever's left they can spend, they're going to get further ahead.
Right.
Now, what do the rest of us do? We make money,
we spend it first.
we spend it, and then if there is anything left, we save it.
and invest.
Yeah, and how much is left? None. And I probably should put it the way that my friend Richard put it back a couple months ago. He said, we make money, we spend money, and if there's any left, we spend money. How often have we gone down and bought that new TV?
Yeah.
Or the new iPhone that's just coming out? Or whatever else is there, right? It's so very true. So the wealthy have habits. The third thing is they secure advances with experts. And they let the experts be the experts. They don't try to be the financial guy and the banker or the insurance guy or the guy that fixes cars. They don't try to do any of that stuff because they go, you know what? You're an expert in that field. I'm stepping back. Go ahead and do it. I'll pay you, but it's going to get done right. Yeah? You know, it's really funny because, well, I'll tell you a story here in just a second. I was going to tell it here, but I think I'm going to kind of integrate on 2 of them. So secure advances with experts. The last thing is They leverage strategic partnerships. So let me tell you a little story about these two things right here. Back a couple of months ago, and some of you guys have already heard this story, my car decided that it was going to, as I'm driving down the freeway, start making noises. Clank, 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 clank. We know I'm in trouble, right? So I get here, I go, okay, it's not too bad. It's not doing too much when I'm going fast. And so I pull into the parking lot, and I always back in. I had another appointment, so about an hour later, I start to leave, and I look down on the parking lot, and I see this dot, 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 dot. I'm going, this isn't water, because it would have evaporated by now, so it's got to be oil. So what would we do? Well, the first thing I did is go, hey, don't know if I'm going to my appointment or not. Maybe I should go over and find somebody to fix this. So I go, okay, who do I know that might be able to do this? And I go and find a car place, and I take it in, and they got fixed and everything. But that's really not the moral of the story. This story is a little different because a couple days later, one of my friends I was telling the story to. And my friend looks at me and says, why didn't you call me? And I looked back, and I went, I didn't think about it. My friend owns a car dealership. Why didn't you call me? Pick up the phone. I would have taken care of it for you. If I'm wealthy, don't I have a strategic partnership with that person? Aren't I still going to let the experts be the experts? Isn't it interesting the way we think? Yeah, it's amazing to me. So what we said is, okay, we can do these four things. And we think maybe we should start with this one right here. Leverage strategic, because if we're going to do this, if we're going to make an impact for Main Street families, we're going to need the expert, right?
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I really never wanted to be the expert in financial services. Know the beta coefficient of this and this, and it's not happening, right? So we said, okay, we took a look at Primerica and said, Primerica's always been the expert. Always stood in the gap for Main Street families. Been around since 1977. $2 billion in market capitalization, 0 debt. Pretty good expert so far. So we're going to be able to have a track record of delivery for Main Street families, the financial strength to be able to create the tools and the resources so that it meets the needs of Main Street families. Because we can go to all the high-end financial planners and everything in the whole world. But are they going to design things for us? No, they never did before. Where are they going to start now, right? Okay. And then a leverageable system designed for national impact, which means that we can focus on really making that impact. Kind of a big deal, right? So now we've got a strategic partner. Okay, now what do we do? How can we do what the wealthy do? Well, remember the first thing was to lock advances for a family, right?
Right.
Well, the wealthy have a lot of money. So they set up trusts for their kids. So how many of you guys have $6 million to be able to, no, me neither. Me neither, but you know what we can do? We can have level term insurance so that if God forbid something happens to the breadwinner, that family can keep going forward. We don't have to repeat the generation. So check on that one, we can do that, right? Okay, second one, establish habits to build on. Remember that saving? It's the habit. So what if, with a mutual fund, we could go ahead, just $25 a month, and start building that habit? Because if we start with $25 a month, it can go to $50, and then to $100, and then to $1,000, right? But how many of you think that if we start with 0, it ever gets up to $1,000? Oops, probably not. Oh, all I do is shake my head. That's not what it is.
You're that powerful.
Yeah.
Use your mind.
I'll take it.
Okay.
All right. And then, yeah. The third thing was secure advances with experts. Okay? Something called managed accounts were built for the wealthy. It is where they can put their money. They have people watching it for them every day, moving things around, keeping an eye on the other mutual fund managers. But we needed to have at least $250,000 to be able to do that. Have $250,000 that you can just go ahead and invest right now? Yeah, I don't have that either. But you know what we can do? Do you remember our partner, our strategic partner, Primerica? We have them who can actually talk. to the managed account firm and go, you know what? We want to do it for $25,000 a month. Now we have the ability to do what they do. It's pretty awesome. And then the last thing, secure advances with the, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that was, sorry. There we go. Leverage our strategic partnerships. Leverage our partnership with Primerica and also with our advocates, people in our lives that understand what we're doing. That story that Adrian was telling, they understand what we're doing and can support us in it. So if we do these 4 things, we've got a really good chance to at least get financially secure, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? We can actually get a family financially free in 2 to 3 generations. Awesome. Except for one thing. 2 to 3 generations down, that's your grandkids. That's nice. Our grandkids get to be financially free. Anybody here want to be financially free?
Yes. In my generation.
Absolutely. So if there was a way that we could do all of this in 1 generation, would you want to hear about it?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So then will you do me a favor? Will you please help me welcome our Senior Vice President? He's going to talk about that. Brett Sears.
Oh, exciting one.
Yeah.
So we're all see. You get the dilemma with me is I love technology, but I'm okay if it doesn't actually work the whole time. So there are some people that stress out about this stuff, and if that's you, then I'm sorry, I'm gonna annoy you. But, and then things just don't work. Like the thing you have to realize is there's just times that things just don't work, and you bob and weave and make it work. You know, so. Sooner or later, a slide's going to come up. So, and then it's funny is our clicker stopped working, right? And I went to Best Buy to buy them, and you have to order them, and they take time. And so I'm like, well, I can figure it out. So there's an app, and then we figured out how to put it all on our phones. Wade's got a phone this big, and I'm like, I want to be tall enough to be able to have one. And not have it look, because his phone looks the same as my phone, right? So, but we have no idea what's going on right now. And I really want. This is driving me crazy.
Just bob and weave for a while.
I'm telling you, right? Because I can run. The problem is, so normally during my part, I have my elbow here, and I can do it, and it's okay. No, because I set it up to actually do it on the slide. So this is the time I'm like, no, I wanted you to see the slides. So, but really, while this, I have no idea what's going on. See, now here's the thing: as long as y'all give me like a little bit, we can make this. Awesome. Let's go, big. Alright, so we're getting there. We're getting there. So really, though, what you've heard, right, is Adrian talking about the fact that that we're just going to have a small slide now, I guess, is what's going to happen, right? So the thing that's good about this is I used to do everything on an overhead projector, right? So there'd be the big thing that glows in. So it'd be this big and blurry. So this way, at least it's crystal clear, right? It's not HD, but it's right. So we sat back and what Sue talked about, as Adrian talked about. Look, there's 70 million of us stuck. Now that's kind of a weird thing to say. A lot of at the same time, most of us don't fight it, right? We all recognize the wealthy. Now, how many of us want to get there though? So this isn't about demonizing the wealthy, right? We all would like to be completely and totally financially independent, right or wrong, right? So how many of you know? How many of you have ever met a rude rich person?
Yeah.
How many of you have ever met a nice rich person? Yeah. How many of you have ever met a rich poor person? Rich poor or a rude poor person? Right? How about a nice poor person? Yeah. So money has nothing to do with it. It makes you more of who you are. If you're a jerk, money's going to make you a bigger jerk, right? But at the same time, if you're a good person, it's going to make you it's going to give you access to do things. Right? So we have to take that stigma away. Right? And so we sat down and said, look, at the end of the day, we've got to be able to stand in a room and say, it's not okay that we don't have access to the same tools and resources. It's not fair. Right? Ty and I as you guys know, my wife is pregnant with twins, and so we're looking at a minivan.
What?
Because we've got a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, and then we're about to have twins, and minivans are just what you get when this happens, right? It ain't cool. But it's functional, for 3 years. And so we're going and looking, and we looked at the Town and Country, which is like a Chrysler, and it's bad to the bone, right? The kids are all excited, and then, right, we went and looked at the Toyota, and the Town and Country is like 40 grand, and the Toyota is like 60 grand. And Ty yesterday was driving, he goes, Pop, it's just not fair that the Toyota's 60 grand. I go, fair has nothing to do with it. Right? This isn't that it's not fair that we don't have access to the tools and resources, because fair has nothing to do with it. It makes complete sense. In the financial services industry, if you get paid based on the amount of money you're working with, would you rather work with the guy that has $1 million or the guy that has 10 grand? Million, right? If you're in business, your time's worth it, you're going to allocate. That's completely fair. That doesn't necessarily mean it's right. It does mean it's fair. So what how do we level that playing field? The numbers aren't going to change, but how do we do it? That's really why the Primerica opportunity was created, that said, good people want to have access to the education and tools. How are we going to deliver? How can we stand in this gap? And so what Sue went through was the tools and resources that we could provide to mainstream families that give the equivalent benefit that the wealthy have. Right? And the reason that she talked about the fact that it's 2 to 3 generations isn't because you don't love your family. Isn't because the tools and resources aren't good. The reason why it's a 2 to 3 generation process is you and I don't make enough money. We can't ever make enough money at our jobs to save enough money at our jobs to be able to get completely and totally financially independent. Does that make sense? It doesn't mean you don't love your family. It doesn't mean the tools and resources and it's not fair. It's just dollars. If you're saving $300 a month, do you think you're going to accumulate less money than if you're saving $20,000 a month? It's just math, right or wrong. I think we're going to have a better chance of creating wealth if we're saving 20 grand a month than if we're saving $200 a month. Now, $200 a month over 70 years will get you there. 20 grand a month over 10 years will get you there. Does this make sense? So it's not a question of fair, it's just a question of math. So we looked at it and said, how do we get one generation of wealth? We've got to do it through ownership, because we have to have an opportunity to be able to create enough cash flow to be able to save 20 grand a month. And most of the time, we can't go to our boss tomorrow and go, you know, I went to this meeting last night and I really love my kids, so could you give me a bonus of 20 grand a month so I could get free? I'm going to agree, most of our bosses are going to go, did you have cookies at this meeting? Right? They're going to look at you like you have lost your blanket mind. And you're like, no, but they did it great and the clicker didn't work, but it was awesome. Right? The reality is they're going to look at us, so we said, no. We need a vehicle. Cindy, you and I need a vehicle that we can increase our income. That's where we sat down and said, if we're going to live in integrity and close this economic gap, this access gap, we have to provide access to ownership. Because we all know the only way to do it is to be able to have the money there and then to not have to be working for it too. So we said, okay, how do we do that? Well, we need to be able to harness the mainstream entrepreneurial spirit. This is not an entitled philosophy. This is not, it's not fair. If we approach, right, my 10-year-old, we have this come to, right, it's not fair is not a sentence that should ever utter from that child's mouth, because life's just not fair. Right? Richard was talking about, I don't know if I believe in luck, but if I did it, bad. I have a brand new tattoo. I have a philosophy, right, that says good luck, bad luck, who knows? Some of the worst things that's ever happened to me were the best things that ever happened to me. And some of the best things that ever happened to me turned out to be the worst things that ever happened to me. Good luck, bad luck, who knows? But you know what we can do is there's a spirit inside us that says, I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to teach my children that they're dependent. I don't want to count on someone else. I don't want to have to work for the next 40 or 50 years just to get by. There's a spirit inside us that says, no, it doesn't have to be this way. And so we said, man, we want to be able to harness that. Right? We want an opportunity, right, to leverage the support system. Why? Because we can't be all things to all people. They say most small businesses fail in the first 5 years. Why? Because they don't work hard? I've met amazing small business owners that work their tail off. You have to be good at the front of the house, at the back of the house, at the support system, to everything, because it all relies on your shoulders. And we said if we want to legitimately create an ownership opportunity, we have to have a leverageable support system so that we can let people really good at impacting and make sure that the back of the house is in place so people don't have to do it. And then we need a transition path because none of us can leave our job tomorrow and say, man, I went to this great meeting. This was awesome. Woohoo! I quit. I got the business. I was 22 years old at $24,000 of credit card debt. The only thing, oh, that's really not good. The only thing I knew about money is I didn't have it, right? So we sat back. I really want you guys to see the slide, so I'm really hoping that we get this working. So this really wise. I worked really hard on this. It looks fantastic, doesn't it? It looks so exciting. Here's what we know, though. It's not the clicker, but for some reason they're working together. So, but how cool that I am standing here, and I am using this. Okay, I don't have to go back there. This works. This, like, the mouse is working incredibly well. It's not going anywhere. How cool that I can. But for some reason, it's not opening a single file, like at all. This makes no sense. But you know, it just is what it is, and sometimes. You see, now we have a bigger screen.
Okay.
So let's try it and see. See, oh, check this out. Now we're just click.
Oh, and there's something about when you click past a certain slide.
When you go really fast, it just this is a patient mode, and, I am a patient young man, traditionally.
It's when you slide.
And so we just wanted to make sure that everyone saw the names again, and so for some reason Adrian's entire slides got eaten. We're not sure, but you nailed it, by the way. I emailed you the slides today, and you crushed it without it. I'm really proud of you. That's a big deal. And Sue found out a few minutes ago that she was going to do the slides, and because Rob wasn't feeling well, and you crushed it, right? We got a team of leaders that stepped in and really stepped. That's a big deal. It's hard to step in front of a room and make an impact, so I'm really proud of, right, just in case we need to review these slides. Because we worked really hard on these, right? Not every slide can through scrutiny. We want to make sure you're like, oh, these ideas, they still hold water, even when, right? And so we sit there and said, okay, look, so now one generation, we got ownership, right? We got to harness the Main Street entrepreneurs, leverage the support systems, and we need a path. Because we can have the greatest ideas in the world, but we have responsibilities. And we can dream, we can lay in bed so excited about, man, how great. How many of you guys have ever, like when you were young, was I the only one that ever did the dream, like you tripped over like $25 million and it's like 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night, and now it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and you're like, go to bed! Right? You're like yelling at yourself because you got yourself so wound up, so excited. Am I the only one that's ever done that? Right? We do that as kids. As we get older though, how many of us have done, okay, I gotta figure out how am I gonna pay that bill if I don't pay this one, and then like 2 o'clock in the morning and you're trying to do 3-card Monte when it comes to that, right? Now I would like to acknowledge, right? I just reached 50% of my activity because my watch just told me. I was talking with Richard, and all of a sudden it sent me the thing that the Red Sox lost to the Reds, and I'm like, he was like, how do you know? I'm like, because my watch just told me. So again, I'm totally blowing right there. You're like, I've never, I don't know why I'm here tonight. But we sat there and said, look, if we're really going to do this, and hopefully, look, I take what I do incredibly seriously. I don't take myself that seriously while I do it. But I don't ever want to lose the focus of what's going on. Is we literally said, if we're going to close this access gap, we have to provide access to the educational tools. But we also have to have a legitimate path to ownership, because otherwise it's not real. We're not genuine in our long-term approach. So we said, okay, for that we need to have these pieces. So we looked at this thing and said, okay, what does that mean? That means that I need this, right? We looked at this and said, okay, what are we talking about? And Primerica's been around for 35 years. And today, because of technology and all this other stuff, there's this phrase in the business world called the business incubator. It says, here's what's going to happen. It's all over, right? Silicon Beach is now down in Santa Monica, the Silicon Valley, and there's all this, right, all over the places, right? There's this concept of these young 19 and 20-year-old kids that have been writing and sitting in someone's garage and coming up with these ideas, and they have these amazing ideas. But they don't understand business, and they do is they go to these venture capital because they build it, and they're like, hey, we've got this idea, we'd like you to fund it. And the VC goes, okay, here, we're going to take a certain percent of your business, and we're going to put you into what we call a business incubator that says, okay, you show up, You work on your idea. We're going to teach you about business, and we're going to provide some funding. We're going to give you the opportunity to stay in business, and we're going to guide you. We're not going to teach you about your app. That's your job. But we're going to teach you about business. Does that make sense? Right. Well, Primerica's been doing that for 35 years. I was a 22-year-old waiter. I walked into a room and said, I want to be a business owner. I want to learn how to do this. I don't know nothing about nothing. And a guy named Mark Rose says, here, I'll teach you. If you do what I do and know what I know, you can have what I have. And I go, well, what is that? He goes, well, we got to change the world. We got to make an impact in families' lives. We got to deliver resources and tools to people. I go, well, I can learn that if you'll teach me. And he goes, you got to show up to a meeting. We got to talk about it. You got to show up to a training on Saturday. We can talk down. We can sit down. We can have meetings. We can do all this stuff. And my job is to teach you everything I know about how I built a business. Because if you know what I know and do what I do, you can have what I have. It really is what a business incubator is. Primerica's been doing this for 35 years, and we have more six-figure earners, more millionaires than any company in American history. We're not trying to figure this thing out. What we are is not big enough. There are 70 million families that make between $30,000 and $300,000 that are dependent on a system that no longer works, that are teaching their children to approach money the same way their parents taught them, which is the same way their parents taught them. And we will repeat generation after generation after generation. And the wealthy are repeating generation after generation, but they're teaching them different things. Not good, not bad, different. Does this make sense? Yeah. So we said if we could put that position together, we could make a legitimate change. We said, it's okay, so if we wanted to do this, what would this path have to look like? Again, we can have great ideas, but the only way we're going to make a difference is if we find great people. Desperate people will do desperate things. We want the best of the best. We want to attract amazing people. What would we need? Well, we said we need low capital entry. Why? I'm a 22-year-old waiter. I don't have 50 grand. I don't have $150,000. The average franchise that makes $100,000 in cash flow a year is $650,000 in this country. Which means if you want a system that works, that's predictable and duplicatable, you have to walk in with $650,000 to make $100 grand. Now I got a question. If you had $650,000, would you need to give it to somebody else so you could make $100 grand? Why would someone do it? Is if you have $6 million, you could open 10 of them, and now you have a machine that can create wealth for multiple generations. Well, that's the wealthy. That ain't us. Does that make sense? So we said we needed low capital entry. It costs $2 grand to get licensed through the state of California. Primerica says you cover half the FAI background check, which costs the company $200. You pay $100 of it, we'll pay for all your licenses. $100 isn't a bad capital entry. Now, some people are like, well, why don't you pay for the whole thing? But we don't want you that bad. We want everyone to have some skin in the game. When I have someone get started and they do this $100, I go, I want you to imagine it's $150,000. Because that's the opportunity that's in front of us. We needed a partnership platform to be able to have that leverageable. Our logo are these 3 circles because it's about strategic partnerships. There's 1,600 people in Duluth, Georgia right now who wake up with a purpose of building a financial services company. We don't got to be that good. Someone needs to know the beta coefficients of the standard deviations. It just doesn't have to be us. Have them on speed dial. If someone asks us a question, like, is it real? We have access. We have a back office support company that provides all the resources and tools. So we just get to build. So we get to be us. And those 2 things could be great, but you know what? We also needed a high potential for capital return. Because we're all busy. How do you know? Because last Wednesday night, you all were doing something. If you weren't here, you'd all be doing something. If we're going to take our time, we want to make sure that the capital investment, that it makes sense. So we sat down and said, okay, if we could put those together, then we'd have a shot, right? We said, but look, and Richard, you and I were talking about this, is we said, look, if we're going to do this, though, we want to attract the best. So we said we need to create a place for everybody. So our business is broken down. The first thing we have is what we call our allies. These are people in our corner that understand and support. If you were going to open any business in the world, wouldn't you want everyone in your life to understand what you're doing? Right. If you're going to open up a restaurant, wouldn't you have a grand opening, invite everybody, give them free food? Why? Because they got to come every week? No. but there's an opportunity for them to know who you are and what's going on, because we spend an entire life building a support system, and most of us don't want to burden them. You know what? The wealthy don't have that challenge. The successful say, look, our support system is everything. We go, man, we want everybody in our corner. Why are you here? Why do we do this Wednesday night? The number one reason is we said it's the easiest way for somebody to be able to paint this picture and have them understand, I get what you're doing. What you're doing is real. There's 70 million people that are struggling, and it's good that there's somebody standing in this gap saying there's an opportunity to make that change. If everyone in our life just said, what you're doing is good and I'm proud that someone's doing it, you think you're more powerful? You think you got a better shot? We said, man, the way we're going to grow is through an advocate network. Through people proactively involved that says, man, not only am I supportive, but I'm going to take you by the hand and introduce you, because all of us know great people. Maybe it's today, maybe it's next week, maybe it's 4 years from now. There's a Main Street entrepreneur, there's somebody that says, man, there's just got to be a shot to do something different. Well, Lisa, if everyone in your life understood and supported what you did and understood the opportunity in front of you, it's not that hard for them to go, you know what, I know there's someone you need to talk to. I don't know if it's for you, but you got to spend some time with Lisa. Man, if everyone in our life understood and supported and had an opportunity there, we have a shot to do something real. How are we going to close this gap, guys? It's our allies and our advocates. But there's also going to be some that become associates. See, all it is a stepping stone. The first thing we do is there's a group of us that go, man, what you're doing is good. Some are going, man, I know some people that need this. And some can go, if there was a shot for me to do that one generation thing, that could be kind of cool. We said there's a place for everyone, because tonight's not about convincing anyone to be anyone, but to let everyone know that there's a shot for all of us. And we sat down and said, look, one of the positions we call the GAP is a gathering asset partner. Why? There's 10,000 people turning 65 years old every day for the next 19 years. And this is the first generation to ever have access to a 401k. Ever. Think about that. Our parents had pensions. $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month. Or our parents' parents. Our parents are getting checks for $200,000, $600,000, $91,000, $947,000. Are any of these people prepared for that level of asset? Why? Because no one's ever talked to them their entire life because they're making $62,000 a year. Are the wealthy advisors talking to someone making $62,000 a year? No, because there's no money in it. We started the conversation. But that family that's making $62,000 is saving 8% of their 401k and it's getting matched, and now they're retired with $411,000. And someone says, here. And we go, whoo. Because if someone handed you a paper of $411,000, how many of you would give? But we don't know what to do with it. See, our GAP saying, look, we know that bad people can do bad things. Good people can do good things. Right. What if we could just stand in the gap? There are going to be people who have no interest in building a business with us, but love the idea of helping folks and understand that there's a problem. And we said, look, if someone had $1 million part-time with us in assets under management, they'd be $4,300 a year. But one of my favorite things is $5 million is $1,800. The average person starts working, Richard, at 22 years old. And Social Security says they can retire at 67. And the average Social Security check is $1,269. 45 years of work for $1,269 a month in passive income. If someone worked with us for 5 years and just found $1 million a year of people rolling over and helping that, they could make more money part-time, spare time with someone else servicing than Social Security would pay. Guys, that's an opportunity to change not only this group of people, but that group. We're going to have some of us, some that want to be part-timers. They love their job. They're like, I'm a teacher. I don't want to quit my job. I got into teaching because I love teaching. But man, most of us, if we made an extra $500 to $1,000 a month, if you had an extra $1,000 in your checking account right now, how many of you would know exactly what you would do with it?
Yeah.
The problem is most of us go, I need 3 because the 1,000 would be gone. The good news is our part-timers make $1,000 a month, and then the next month 1,000, and then the next one, and maybe it takes them 6 months or a year or 2 years. But at some point, an extra $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 a year starts to get them up to even.
Once they get up to even, now all of a sudden, what if they took half of it and saved it? We already said if you saved an extra $2,000 a month, right, that's going to be more than if you save $200 a month. We're going to have some that want to be part-time on the way to full-time. But see, he said keep the security of your job while you're building. If you made an extra $2,000 or $3,000, you save some, you put some to get out of debt, you save some for retirement, you build the business, you learn how to make an impact in people's lives, you got the skill sets that you needed, and it wasn't about fear and walking away from what you're doing. And then some are going to be what we call team owners, right? Because every business, why does business work? Because every business has the opportunity to earn passive income and revenue. What's passive income? The ability to get paid on work you did before. At your job, can any of us get paid on the work we did before at our job? No, the moment it's over, it's over. Does the business get paid based on the work we did in the past? Yes. That's passive income. Revenue is the work we do today. And profit, the opportunity to develop more outlets. To have consistent passive income and revenue machines continue to grow. That's why business owners can create freedom. So we said, man, we wanted to shop for our allies, for advocates, for our associates. But what if we had a place for our spare timers that just wanted to do that? Our part-timers that didn't want to leave. Some of the ones that wanted to become business owners. And a shop for our team owners, man, we got a shop. Because we can build this all the way through. But watch this. We said, look, if passive income, if an RVP and owner had $15 million of assets under management, that's $8,300 a month in passive income. If you had a team with another $30 million, that's an additional $8,300. If you build a business and help 30 families a month, look, there's 12 of us, 15 of us in a room. If each of us help 2 people a month, that's 30. We're not talking about 300,000 families. We're talking about 30 families that pay $12,000 to $16,000 a month. And one of my favorite parts, why do we grow? Because this isn't about, hey, here's trying to get me. No. Passive income and revenue was great, depending on my effort. I like profit. Because profit is, let me give you the same shot I got. Let me give you the opportunity to build this for your family. This, if someone came through and became a vice president and did this, this is what Wade and Kristen can do for Wade and Kristen's family. But primarily, Sears, we want you to build a business incubator. Experience and your expertise and your guidance and your support and your content. We want to give you all of those resources, and we're going to pick up the cost. So Wade and Kristen are like, man, I got to get to my 15 or my 30 million. That's 200 grand. I got to get to build a business. That's 30. That's another 200 grand. That's 400,000. I'm like, wait, go get them, Tiger. Because for every RVP you produce that helps just 15 families in their organization, half of the 30. So $6,200 a month or $72,000 a year in profit. So I'm not that bright, but I go, man, 172, choose 144, 210, 280, that's 350. So I looked at this and said, okay, well, passive income's 200 grand, and revenue's 200 grand, and profit's 350, that's $750,000 a year. That's $60,000 a month. If you spent $25,000 in taxes, that's $35,000. If you lived off of $200,000, that's $15,000 a month extra. How many of you think if you could save $15,000 a month, you and your family would have a legitimate shot to get wealthy in one generation? Yeah. And made a bigger impact because if you had $20,000 a month in taxes, you think you're making an impact in your community more than if you're trying to pay your $800 a month? And you're still living on just 16. How many of you think if I had to make survive on 16 grand a month after I paid my taxes and saved my money, you could possibly find a way to do it?
Okay.
This is why we do what we do. Because we said, look, at the end of the day, guys, there's a role for all of us. Yes, there's a place for everyone. But more than that, there's a role for all of us. Whether it's our allies, because they're the ones that ignite the movement and the boots on the ground. Whether they're our advocates, the vocal supporters, the proactive recommenders, or they're our associates. There's a responsibility because we now have a legitimate shot to close this gap. Is it going to happen tomorrow? No. We didn't get into this problem overnight. We're not getting out of it overnight. And the 12 of us aren't going to solve it. But if we worked together, 6 months from now, couldn't there be 100 of us? And if we could do that a year from now, couldn't there be 400 of us? And we worked through that. 2 years from now, 5 years from now, couldn't there be 2,000 of us? 8 years from now, couldn't there be 20,000 of us? 10 years from now, couldn't there be 100 or 200,000 of us across the country? Could you imagine 30, 50, 100, 1,000 of these offices going through, telling this story in every community in this country? You think then we might have a shot to close that gap? And guess what? What we said was, we're going to align our goals and our objectives. Our goals and our objectives is to close this economic gap. We want to do it 2 to 3 generations for the family we serve, and a legitimate path for 1 generation for the people that want to help us help. Which means the people who participate here, we have a vested interest in getting you and your family legitimately financially free in 1 generation. That's not a bad group of people. And whether tonight you're an ally, you're an advocate, or you're an associate, not only is there a place for all of you, but there's a role for all of us too. And that's what this is. That's why. That's why Saturday morning we're going to be 9 to 11. That's why we're going to be back here next Wednesday night. And to be able to tell the story again. And the goal is to have 15 people in the room or 18 people in the room. The goal is to be able to sit down and say, man, we're not going to do this alone. And whether, regardless of where it is, there's a place, guys, we got a shot to do something. I want to thank all the speakers. I want to thank everybody here. Man, I am so excited about what's in front of us and the opportunity that's here. Man, we are in a place where we want to be. And now we grow. So, guys, I want to thank you for coming. Welcome aboard for what we're doing. Have a great day. Check that out. Music right up.
At least the music worked.
Huh? Yeah, I want the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically,